My schools were, once they found out there was something different about me, they were more inclined to work towards me. This rate of underdiagnosis means inappropriate medication or inappropriate therapies are given or interventions are given to people. In advocacy, it's hard to always make an impact because you're always pushed aside. In order to actually create an intervention that works for people, you need to have the people you want the intervention to work with involved in the creation of it.
Welcome to the Metautism podcast, where we're diving into the vibrant world of autism and championing inclusive education and employment. Join us as we explore innovative strategies, share inspiring stories, and analyze groundbreaking initiatives that celebrate differences and advocate for a future of equal opportunities. Let's get started. Hello. How are you? Welcome to another episode of Metautism podcast. I'm your host, Clara, and I'm really excited that I'm speaking with David Eaton. He's working in disability advocacy as a policy and project officer at Autism-Europe. Their main objective is to advocate for the rights of autistic people and, of course, help to improve their quality of life. David will share today his life story from his childhood school years, but also his perspective on work and also on this project, Green ASC VET Metautism project, since Autism-Europe is an invaluable partner on this project, as I said. So, David, it's so good to have you here and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Clara. I'm happy to participate.
Yeah, I want to say, I only heard great things about you from other members of this project. And maybe let's start from the beginning. So, when did you first find out that you are autistic?
I first found out I was autistic when I was about the age of 12 to 13. I was already in high school and previously had been assessed for dyslexia, and a few psychologists identified maybe autism might be also a potential diagnosis, and that's how I got there. So 12 years old. And
was that kind of shock for you and your parents, or was that something you kind of expected and you were just looking for some answers? What were the things that helped you to go in the direction to seek assessment?
For me, because I was naturally the 12-year-old kid, it wasn't a major concern. But for my parents, particularly my mother and the teachers in my school, there's a concern about how I was socially interacting with other students. And I was pretty much socially isolated for the first few years of second level education in Ireland. Yeah, I just didn't interact with people. So they just wanted to find out, why isn't that happening? Logically, they said maybe it's autism.
But you're also a great communicator. You are also highlighting communication, organization as your important skills in your life. So, what were some other autistic traits that you maybe saw?
So for me, it's restrictive, repetitive interests are hugely identifiable in me. I'm really focused on what I'm interested in. Really don't pay attention to anything else. I'm a bit shy, let's say, or introverted in a lot of cases. I'm not exactly someone who follows social norms or social conventions in a lot of ways. So I tend to be a tiny bit inappropriate for certain contexts. There's those elements of me. And of course, the sensory sensitivities that I have are definitely sunlight, light and heat. I'm cursed when it's warm and sunny, which is a horrible trait for most people, but it's who I am.
So maybe we can also see how that reflected in your school years. What were some of the challenges you faced? How did you deal with them and so on?
In primary school, I was very shy and not exactly the sort of kid who was doing homework or working particularly hard. And of course, this naturally led to a dyslexia assessment. So in my school years, the biggest problems were mostly around teachers bullying me. And I had one specific year where in my primary school, when I was about 9 years old, I had a teacher who really didn't like me. And he would be loading on more work on top of us and tried to make me do these spelling tests in Irish. Now, the Irish language is impossible to phonetically spell. So he'd be doing it deliberately to just kind of push and bully me a little bit. And whenever I ask for help or try and say, hey, I'm not understanding, so he'd be like, well, that's your fault. That's not on me. You have to take responsibility for that. Telling that to a 9-year-old was outstanding. Then that naturally led to the dyslexia assessment, which significantly improved the quality of teachers I had from that point onwards. And going on to the second level, my older sister, was in the same secondary school as me, except she'd experienced a lot of bullying, harassment for her own reasons. That meant the school that I was going to was a little bit more sensitive to my family's situation and were more aware of what was going on in our household. So it meant that they were a little bit more inclined to tailor a lot of interventions towards me. So giving me support classes in addition to mainstream classes, getting me an exemption from learning the Irish language, and also giving me more time to do different tasks and like writing things down from a chalkboard or getting my own exam hall for my state exams. My schools were, once they found out there was something different about me, they were more inclined to work towards me. Thankfully, thanks to the very hard work of the support team in my secondary school, they encouraged me to go to university and encouraged me to constantly aim for trying harder. So this was a positive. On the negative, the school community for the students was not great. A load of teenagers, they're not exactly the most compassionate people at the best of times. Because my sister was so intensely bullied, and I mean intensely is a very light word for it. I was already socially anxious going into the school context, so I just avoided students for the first few years. So for me, that was the scary part, was the students in second level versus the teachers in primary level.
I'm so sorry for the bullying. I understand how the teenagers are, but that is not an excuse for them and also for the teachers. I mean, it's really terrible that you have to be proven to be different for teachers and other people to consider your emotions, your preferences, habits, and so on. That's very not empathetic. And it's really sad that people can't just be themselves.
There's sadness or negativity to be on it, but dwelling on the bad things prevents you from seeing the bright things. The school gave me a lot of support when they could. My family tried to provide me support, but my parents aren't exactly academic people. So it's good to have an opportunity at post-diagnosis to get supports, but it's silly that it took that long. And unfortunately, my sister's case, she's a great comparison to me. Because nothing was done about the bullying or her situation, she had to leave school. She dropped out. She spent a few years outside of school, eventually finding an alternative one where they actually cared about her circumstances. So it's nice to have that comparison of what could have been if I wasn't diagnosed. That's an important thing to really take into account, because a lot of time people like my sister and women in general with autism, they're underdiagnosed. The symptoms aren't recognized. The traits of autism aren't recognized. Not symptoms, I correct myself. A lot of girls are left undiagnosed and are put into horrible situations for large parts of their lives because of that lack of diagnosis.
Incredible message. I mean, it's a good one. If you have anything more to expand on it, please do so. If not, it's also completely fine.
In general, when we're talking about autism and women or autism and girls, particularly during the ages where it becomes obvious or a little bit more obvious that a person's autistic. Because how our society treats women are more inclined or more pressured to mask, or their autistic traits are less obvious or less seen because everything is designed, or every diagnostic tool was designed around people like me, boring, male-presenting people. So women are frequently underdiagnosed, and then they're badly diagnosed with borderline personality disorder is a huge misdiagnostic for autistic women. Depression, OCD, these are long-term difficult health conditions, but they all stem from having autism. In terms of our society does not accept or does not cater towards autistic people. So women and girls with autism actually have to fight so much harder than boys. And this is the misdiagnosis or underdiagnosis problem. And this is very important to address because it's full spectrum. Can affect anyone from any position or any background. And the fact that it's been built entirely around the idea that it's only young white boys who have autism leads to problems and further people. We need to always be mindful of we're all a society and we're all a community.
I actually read some comments on the social media about actually misdiagnosis and so on.
And it is a stunning issue or a stunning kind of level of cognitive dissonance by medical and educational professionals where they do not want to see women as potentially having autism, particularly in the past. It's getting better now, but there's still backgrounds of it. I know of at least my case of my sister. She autistic, more than likely. I know in the case of one of my best friends, who also similarly was bullied out of secondary school and high school and had a whole waft of misdiagnosis and diagnostic failures that just did not suit her. And when she had her son somewhat later in her life and he started primary school and he was going through the psychological assessment processes, that's how she got her diagnosis. So this rate of underdiagnosis means inappropriate medication or inappropriate therapies are given or interventions are given to people, which can be, especially at the early ages, very damaging later on in life. And this is very important to care about the full spectrum of autism, and that means each individual, whether they're a boy or a girl.
Absolutely. And I also know many women who got diagnosed in their 40s, not before, not in school and so on. So they had absolutely no help, no understanding of themselves and how they actually are. So that is definitely a good point you said over there. But now let's get back to you. Could you share your experience with work? You are now working for Autism-Europe, but also you worked in several other positions previously. How did they shape you as a person? How did you contribute to those positions and so on?
Even for the most basic job I worked as my first job was about 15 years old, working as a file person who just puts in files into a place. That was fine. There's nothing really to discuss about that. It's just a filing job. My first post-qualification or adult job, as I like to call it, was working for a lobbyist organization around the electricity sector, which was fine. Highly technical area, highly boring area for most people, but it was fine. Getting to grips with the social life in the office was hard. And also having a lack of kind of direction from a manager or a leader was what caused me the most problems there. This contrasts very much with my my next job, which currently is still one of my favorite places I've ever worked. I worked as a consumer rights advocate or officer for an Irish regulatory organization. And from day one in that job, I had this fantastic manager. Sarah, she was brilliant because from the day one, I was just like, Sarah, I didn't quite understand what you were talking about in the presentation this morning. Do you mind if you go over this? And then we talk more about autism and what I needed and my accessibility needs. And from that day, from day one in the Commission for Aviation Regulation, my entire team was like supportive, sharing, collaborative, amazing people. In that job, I was encouraged to be myself and encouraged to be the strongest version of myself. And I wasn't kind of pushed into a corner or given kind of like the special treatment that a lot of autistic people have experienced in the past. So this amazing manager, Sarah, and another one of my colleagues, particularly a woman called Deborah, got me really involved into disability advocacy because we were responsible for every single airport in Ireland. We had to ensure they were accessible for people with disabilities. And that was our job. And these two women particularly encouraged me a lot towards that direction and taught me a lot about accessibility in terms of the aviation space. And that naturally has kind of fostered my interest in disability advocacy. And after that, I had a smattering of jobs in Germany as a freshly arrived immigrant in Germany. I have to say, being an autistic immigrant and starting a new job in a new culture was extremely difficult. There is no way around it. I worked in call centers, with fine. Call centers are call centers. They're loud, they're annoying, they are what they are. They're sensory hell, but they're a job. The worst job I've ever worked with has to be a large firm. I'm not going to go into the name. And their approach to any request or any accessibility or any needs or requests I made were no, 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 and no. We're not going to support you. And eventually, while working in that company, I got really sick, unrelated illness. And after that, I was fired. So that kind of that has to be my worst ever experience ever in any job, because I was told no, 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 and no when I asked for help. And that's a very disheartening thing to go through, especially if you're trying your best and you've just arrived into the country.
I can't understand companies and people like that when you ask for help and they simply say no and they don't care about you. It's very soulless. Now you are in Autism-Europe. How did you decide to join?
So Autism-Europe, I basically was getting sick of working in call centers. I was sick of being working in call centers. And while I was working in the call centers, I was always researching or looking towards policy initiatives around accessibility for people with disabilities, whether it's autism or intellectual disabilities or physical disabilities. Or I just got really interested in the whole aspect of accessibility, particularly around the accessibility of employment for people with disabilities. And I seen an opening in Brussels, and I was recommended by Autism NGO, who I previously interviewed, to give it an attempt and hope for the best. And I went for it. And to be honest, I've loved Autism-Europe since the day I started. A bit more chaotic than I'm used to in most jobs, but I understand this is the norm for disability persons organizations. But the meaning behind the job and what I do, I'm looking always at how to improve the lives of people with autism. That's what I do on a day-to-day basis, and I love doing that. It's great.
Is there anything you'd highlight from your tasks or some projects you're working on? What do you see as the most impactful or what makes you the most excited?
Picking a favorite from a job that like this, very difficult to do. I currently am assigned to 4 different European projects. All of them have great potential impacts. I have to say Metagreen is probably my favorite because it's such well run, it's well considered, it's well researched. The expertise we have involved, whether it's from their Croatian partners, particularly Dida and Ziko, with their fantabulous knowledge about pretty much everything vocational education and training, is just wow. Or our partners in Germany, they are in a Visual factory, fantastic people who have actual experience working with autistic people, but put autistic people working at high level jobs or high impact jobs. So they're not like sheltered employers. And the partners we have involved in this project are fantastic. And it means that I'm seeing different ideas, different approaches I would never considered. Like I have never considered using a simulator to do help with practicing how to do interviews or get familiarization with the offices or understand different jobs, and having the expertise of people who know what different jobs need, having the people who know how to develop these simulators, and having it all designed in a very autistic friendly way is why Metagreen's probably my favorite project I'm working on. In addition to my project work, I do a lot of policy work. So I'd be representing Autism-Europe with the European Commission, where I'd be asking for accessibility needs that we have as a community and discuss what we need with the Commission and try and get that put into legislation. In the European Parliament, where we ask MEPs to support the rights of autistic people on a day-to-day basis. Then to even the international organizations like the UN and OECD, where we provide information around the realities of what life is like if you're autistic in Europe. These elements of my job are very inspiring or very encouraging because you're trying to make an impact. And in advocacy, it's hard to always make an impact because you're always pushed aside. But in this case, the institutions want to speak to you, the professionals want to speak to you, and the projects you're working on are great. It's a great place to work, and I do keep myself very busy every day.
What maybe do you find as the most important aspects of the Green ASC VET Metautism project?
What I really like about MetaGreen is experimental. It's trying and testing an idea that is pretty new, experimental thing designed to help autistic people, but they actually take into account, the entire project takes into account what autistic people say, what we want and what we need. And in order to actually create an intervention that works for people, you need to have the people you want the intervention to work with involved in the creation of it. And I'm very impressed with MetaGreen's ability to co-create these solutions or these ideas or these experiments in order to actually make them relevant, useful, and realistic. I love that. I was surprised I enjoyed that I am saying that I enjoy the simulator ideas because it's just so, what we say in Ireland, left field. It's so different, but I like it. It's really, I love that experimental mentality and testing new ideas in different contexts alongside the autistic community. It's fantastic. It's brilliant.
Absolutely. I mean, trial and error is the best way to progress. Various studies have shown that diverse teams are one of the most innovative, that they bring the most results and most progress compared to very unified and similar team player profiles. And this project actually has 7 partners from 5 European countries, and then you went on various trips, on meetings, on work groups, and so on with other partners. And what would you say are your strengths as a team? How do you cooperate, and so on?
What I would say in this project, the strength of the team is the clarity and honesty of communication. We are completely blunt, straightforward with each other. We do not take nonsense from each other. If we're sitting in a project meeting and one of us gets sidetracked, you're going to be told you're getting sidetracked. No one's going to be polite about it. That's important because it keeps the project focused. And having such a diverse cultural viewpoints, generational viewpoints even, it's fantastic. Like having someone like Zico or Edita involved in the team where they have such extensive knowledge in the background of their brains around vocational education training, or having a wonderful team in Visibly in Hungary. Not in Hungary.
They're in Sweden, right?
Or Denmark. Sweden and Denmark, sorry.
There are lots of team members and partners, yeah.
Having their perspective on how VR or an XR solutions work was brilliant. Then we have like Leila's team in Germany, and they're just like super brainy box who know all this IT knowledge. Then we have our wonderful Hungarian friends who are the best team, or some of the best team collaborators, who like to just throw in ideas or throw in suggestions out of the blue. And it means that they're taking an entrepreneurial approach, where they're just giving a completely different idea that we wouldn't have thought of. And it's interesting to have those kind of dialogues and discussions. Of course, our members in the FDPA in Portugal, autism experts, and having them with me in these project meetings means that we are able to discuss the needs of the autistic community more closely between us. And we're able to say, maybe this idea is more useful, or maybe this idea could be helpful. And having that collaborative spirit where we all can throw ideas at the wall, where we all have such diverse ranges of expertise, knowledge, and experience, is what makes this project stand out. Fantastic project.
I would like to know your opinion. What changes would you like to see in how society approaches autistic people, especially when we are speaking about education and employment?
This is a great question. What I would like to see in reality is autistic people getting the supports they need to access jobs, to access education, to even accessing public services. Having accessible, well-informed people working in the right places can make a whole lot of difference for a lot of autistic people's lives. With the rate of underemployment and unemployment amongst autistic people, which I can't recall the exact numbers, still outpaces even this disability gap between people with disabilities and people without disabilities. Autistic people are still the one group that always have the highest rates of unemployment. So I want to see that unemployment rate decrease. And how we'll see that unemployment rate decrease is by better informing employers, recruiters, educators, and medical or psychiatric specialists in order to help autistic people access supports they need. And that will make the biggest impact. Projects like Green experiment with brand new ideas and try these ideas out. And they're about giving the autistic person the tools they need to interact with the world, or we need to interact with the world and prepare ourselves for the good and the bad. And that's what we do. But there's the element of making the world better. And I think by us even exchanging ideas or having these discussions are what will help encourage the world to become more accessible for autistic people. And we'll never be 100% be accessible, but we're making progress. And by trying different ideas and experimenting for autistic people, helping us develop ourselves could help significantly towards that goal.
Well, David, it was so good having you here. I mean, I heard so many wonderful things. You blew my mind with some of the things you said, and I'm so happy that you shared them.
Of course. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today, Clara, and asking so many good, insightful questions. I'm very happy to provide my perspective. And you've been an amazing host.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. And in the end, I also want to thank European Union and the Erasmus Plus program for funding this project. All opinions are our own. And let's thank our dear listener or watcher, wherever you are watching or listening on the platforms. Thank you so much for joining us. Please follow or subscribe on YouTube or Spotify or your favorite listening platform. And until the next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.